I have a question for you. So I've worked with, I had a relationship with an ALC, a public ALC. What are your thoughts about those type of learning centers for kids that, alternative learning centers for kids that don't have a home structure or I mean, homeschooling is not an option. We're, what do we do with those kids? What do we do with, because there's lots of them.
Yeah, I know. It's tough. I can't change the world. I'm not, I don't know if I have all the answers to that. Although I like what's the Catholic group, Cristo Rey, which, I mean, these are some of the most hard up inner city kids, and they get them in an environment where, again, it's entrepreneurial. They gotta go intern with corporations and companies and stuff like that, and my God, I still think it would be better if they had a home life and a way to learn that way more organically. But of course, if they don't, then you're left with something like that, or like Mueller did in the 1800s with the orphanages. I mean, you have to have some way of getting these kids out of these nasty environments and put them in some place where they can have a chance, right? So I think they're fine. I mean, I think that whatever works. It's just that I think that well, you know what happens. I mean, you know all the stories that go to schools. I mean, all it is just the worse things get. You just bring more cops into the school, and then you beat the crap out of the kids more, and arrest them and handcuff them. I mean, what is this? This is education? This is somehow useful? No, I mean, all it is just trying to control something that you continue to make worse and worse and worse, and obviously the end is going to be not good. It's going to be horrible.
Okay, 2 questions. On you first, and then we'll take your question next.
So I'm curious what you were talking about when you referred to having a relationship with ALC or alternative learning centers. Because my son is a 1 class a day at such a thing, and he likes that environment far better than his traditional high school.
Yeah.
What's been your experience of that?
So I'm an adult mentor with a program called Walk With Me. I've had 2 students now, both of which I walked with, I guess, through 9th grade all the way through, actually one of them 9th grade through extended super seniorism. I guess the program that I was involved with, or I am involved with, is I go in once a week, typically for an hour, just come in, and it's very different with each kid. But just really sit down and talk to them about how school's going, what's going on in their life, talk to them about my life. I think one of the things that in both cases, they're very different kids than me, and I usually come in a suit, and it's amazing when we start talking about, whether it's Led Zeppelin or anime or all this stuff that, how not that different we are. And I think that's probably the best thing that these kids see is that, you can be a certain way, look a certain way, but we're really not. I think they're often amazed at how square I'm not. Square, I just use the word square. I think that's. But what I'm amazed by is that you take this. So this school, from my community, it comes from a large high school, and this school exists because these kids do not function in the traditional public school system that's failed them. It doesn't work for them. And a lot of the kids, in fact, both of the kids that I've worked with, got out of the public school and they did really well. They excelled. They found what they liked, and I think they're awesome. Staff and faculty that work in those schools are unbelievable.
Well, so likes it.
A question?
Well, as a person who went to like an ALC type school, I think what is really important about if people are using those instead of homeschool is that the support systems, because a lot of those ALC schools can also still be indoctrinating. So then it doesn't help the cause when you're going to a place that is supposed to be alternative, but yet still tries to indoctrinate you to that level where you become disengaged. I dealt with that. I was always in gifted and talented programs. And because I refused to be conforming in high school, ran into these issues where I had to go to an alternative school. So I think that to some degree they are good programs. It is a good place for people to go. But a lot of these programs aren't equipped for the type of kids that are coming in there, and it's just another place for them to go because they don't fit into the box of regular school.
Yeah.
I agree with that. And I don't know where else they go.
Right?
That's
I mean,
my-
but I think it just comes to programming, going back to the actual programs, creating a better environment for them and trying to make a supportive environment in these ELCs if we're going to use them to make them more effective so that they're not just with low numbers and having all these kids from all different walks of life who aren't. We need to make it more effective, more personalized to either the neighborhoods, the areas, the concerns of why these programs, even if implemented, why they aren't excelling. Because if people don't have access to homeschool, they need a different way to get that outlet out.
Yeah. I mean, this is a problem, as you've seen or we're talking about, that has been going on for a long time, and it started really when the government started to mandate and try to institutionalize education. And the results, of course, have been catastrophic, and they're always going to be catastrophic when government's involved in that thing, because their goals are not your goals. Their goals are not your children's goals. And so the most primary important thing is by hook or by crook, by any means possible, you got to get your kids out of these systems, because they're not. It's not just that they're slowing you down or they're not as good as they could be. They're destructive one way or another. Correcting this is going to take a long time, because again, the problem is that if you've got so many children out there that have no homes or no families or no reasonable home life to go with, well, that's the problem of that's another problem. Educational problem. That is a problem again of culture and society that again has largely been promoted by government that wants dependent people. So those are going to take some other creative solutions of different kinds to do. I just want to help the people that let's take the low flying fruit, the low hanging fruit. If you got a good home life, find a way, and you still got kids in the system, get them out. That's all. That's what I have to say. We can take other steps after that, but that's number one.
A question for Brendan. What kind of approach would you take for, say, parents who homeschool or young people who live in the public school education system in regards to financial planning or teaching children about money? Just because that's something that, I was public school educated and it was definitely left out of the curriculum completely.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It is, just the lack of discussion about simple concepts like interest, how interest works. And those are elective courses a lot of times. I've got two daughters in high school, and they have to take that class. They have to have an interest in it. Well, nobody has an interest in financial accounting or macroeconomics when they're 14 years old. It's not something that they're going to do. So it isn't, they come out of school not learning, and really that's basic. If you're going to understand your government, if you're going to understand how the world works, it's general things. You have to know that. And I think what frustrates me, and my kids are, public school kids, and I think that we've worked through that. We have active relationships with the teachers, and we are very engaged parents. But I see a lot of these downfalls, and one of the things that drives me the most crazy is, they spend 5 hours a week talking about sex and drugs, and they spend no time talking about, basic math, and balancing a checkbook, or the importance of even doing it. And I think that to me, you just see adults, people come in their 40s and 50s, and they don't even understand what deferred taxes are. They don't understand what that even means, or different kinds of accounts. And that's really pretty basic stuff. And if you have to start there with people, they don't even understand, how things are going to be taxed in different ways and how our taxation system works. That's frustrating to me. You really have to start from ground zero. You got a long ways to go in a financial planning relationship if you got to start there. And I think that's why we get financial planners and financial advisors in general can get a bad rap, because maybe they're selling people products and they look like predators. Well, both people on both sides of the table have to have a general understanding of what they're getting into. And if you don't, people get ripped off.
You know, this is great to kind of enter in and talk more about entrepreneurship, because I know that one of the thoughts that I had, and one of the things we've already talked about with this whole STEM thing, because, you know, I truly believe that what jobs there are going to be in the next 100 years, you know, are probably going to be programming and building robots to do everything else, right? So if you don't know how to do that, if you have no science, technology skills, you have no job, because the robots are going to do everything else, you know. And so I thought about this, and I thought, well, yeah, I mean, the thing to do is, because I mean, I did this. But my old man was, you know, he was like, "You want any money? Allowance?" I'd never heard of what that word is, and I'm not sure I like the word. You want any money? You're gonna have to work for it, right? And so my brother and I had businesses when we were 16 years old, and so, you know, we were already running our own businesses. I mean, not that we were making a lot of money. In case my brother, he was making a lot of money, but in the more gray. But in any case, we knew about money. We knew about interest. We had bank accounts. We had all that stuff, and I think that that's something that maybe is left out, and we can add into this whole equation about with unschooling, homeschooling, and co-oping. It's just, come on, kids, let's start a business, and then you're teaching this stuff in a practical thing, because you know this is your money. You like to keep it, or you want to just blow it, or you want to learn how to save some of it, you want to learn how to invest it, you know. So anyway, that's something that maybe we need to do more of that.
And one of the things you said earlier about the promoting a culture of dependence, I think was to paraphrase, you totally see that. You know, sure, we all want more freedom and we want the government out of our lives, but when you're 45 years old and you've got $40,000 in a retirement account and you've got no insurance to protect you if you're one step away. You're one bad hour away from being dependent on the government for the rest of your life. You know, and nobody's probably ever talked to you about that. But you know, you're going to vote Republican because you want your freedom back and you want to pay lower taxes. Well, you're voting the wrong way, buddy, because you're one slip and fall away from being in real trouble, and I don't know who's going to help you.
Yeah. Well, and look at they're talking about the big, you know, and that. You know, what's their average savings and what do they got as far as retirement funds? I mean, you got to be in the point where you're just like, you know, flabbergasted. Like, the hell do you do for these people? You know, there's not much you can do. You know, so we got to break this cycle, folks. We got to start when they're young, and because otherwise, we're all doomed. You know.
Michelle, did you have anything you wanted to comment?
I was actually curious, a question for you, about how do you then incorporate teaching your little ones about money in a gentle fashion?
Oh, that's fantastic. Actually, I was just going to say
Oh,
something
good.
about that. So yeah, to your point, now to your question.
Okay.
I think that one of the things you can do, especially as a parent, so if your kids are in school and they aren't learning this, or if your kids are young, and you're in charge of education, is include them in your process of financial planning. The one thing that I was fortunate for when I was growing up is that I grew up in a small farm in South Dakota, and so you didn't go to financial planners, they came to you to try and take your money. And so I was able to sit in around the kitchen table as they were trying to take my dad's money. And I got to learn about, interest and deferred taxes and all that, all of that stuff. Now again, him owning his own small business made him much more aware of tax laws and, actual need for planning, all of that. But that's something that is very important for me to pass on to my kids as well. And so, again, our daughter being 4, she doesn't understand pennies and nickels quite yet. So deferred interest is probably, or deferred taxes are probably a little bit further down the road.
Years.
Yeah. But I try and include them in all of the things that my wife and I do to the extent that it is possible. Yes, it takes much more time to include a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old in this stuff, but we're starting with small things. We start with cooking, we start with gardening, we start with things that they can get their hands on and get experience with, and then we will move into the areas of our life that are a little more complicated, but also provide fantastic opportunities for learning. So bring in the concepts of all of the math, like you said, behind financial planning, all of the, I guess you can call it reading. I mean, what Common Core requires people to read executive orders now, so you might as well read some tax law, I guess. All of that, and that all becomes part of the parenting process. Other questions?
for a while we were going.
Yeah, that was real good. Yes, sir.
This is probably more education related, but I think you could probably answer this from your perspective too. What do you see as what's the guiding principles of educating a child? You know, some people it's like to create a good citizen. You know, with public schools, I think they think that, but they have a very different idea of what a good citizen is. So that may change for everybody. Some people it's like to create a capable worker. You know, some people it's just to pursue their dreams. But is there something that like helps you bring you back to what am I actually trying to do? And
I wanna
for you,
nurture
what would
their
you like to see the
curiosity.
schools do? You know, as an entrepreneur, like what do you see missing or so? I don't know, just.
Yeah, my guiding light is that I want to nurture their curiosity and help them to think outside the box and to not just take what I say as God's truth, but to test it and to go out there and to think critically and to get involved. So, as a citizen, obviously that's one of my goals, but I think my main goal is just to nurture their curiosity and to help them to learn in that respect.
I second all of that. I think that, look, it's not our right to try to tell these people, these children, these young people, what you're going to be, what you're going to do, or, you know, they got to figure it out. All we can do is hopefully listen when they tell us what they want to learn, give them some resources, guide them down some paths that we think are useful, that we know something about, and encourage them to be the best, most creative, most awesome individuals that they possibly can be. And you probably don't want me hanging around your child if you want them to be a good citizen. Because I will inadvertently, it'll slip out that, no, you shouldn't be a good citizen, right? And,
Depends on your definition of good.
right, exactly. I have other feelings about that, and so, but I don't think that I necessarily, I mean, the adults I do, you know, adults I try to, you know, get them, but I mean, if you kid mostly is, you're mostly you're just trying to get them to love learning, love the whole aspect of what it is to learn new things and try new things and to succeed at them and see how awesome your own mind is and what you can do with your mind. And I think that's got to be, unless you want robots or slaves.
I would agree with that, and I think your point to the lifelong learning is not something that is just, you know, when I look back at teachers and mentors throughout my life, the ones that really stuck and mattered to me were people that just made me interested in something. I wanted to know. I look at our two daughters right now, and I have one that's a culinary student. I mean, that is her thing. That is what she's decided. She's her passion, and she will spend, 8 hours a day working on that. I mean, that's what she loves to do. My other daughter is a design student at the university, and that is her thing. It is her passion, and she had mentors that instilled that in her, and she has a genuine interest in it. If I was forcing her to spend an hour on math, an hour on history, an hour on economics in her house, she'd be like, screw it, I don't want any part of this. And I know they both would tell me to do that, and thank God they would. Because now I know that they're passionate about what they're doing and what they're interested in, and they did find that in a public school, but I know a lot of kids don't. And I think that I just encourage them to be that way and have a genuine interest in things. And I think as a financial planner, when I'm sitting with a client that generally has an interest in learning about how things work, that's a way better relationship than somebody that says, tell me what I need to do. It might not be as lucrative for me as tell me what I need to do, but it's much better.
I have a question in the back.
Well, I was going to ask a very interesting talk. Do you guys have any resources on any of your topics that you guys, websites, books, that each of you give for your variety of topics? Justin, piece of parenting, Brandon, financial management for like a dumb millennial like myself, homeschooling Michelle or Nick, your audience, that sort of stuff. So any resources that we can kind of take on?
Peaceful parenting, that term itself is relatively new. There have been a number of things that come close to it that are also in the same vein. So nonviolent communication is kind of the basis for it. So Rosenblum, I believe, is the author who does nonviolent communication.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's right.
And he has a book that specifically talks about how to use nonviolent communication for children, but also it can be used in your day-to-day life in jobs and in relationships with your spouse and everything else. It's fantastic. L.R. Nost, K-N-O-S-T, also has written a lot about peaceful parenting. And then if you want to go more in like the traditional realm of research, Alfie Kohn comes as close as I've found to someone who's peer-reviewed and doesn't use the terms peaceful parenting, but he gets close. He gets very close. So those would be the resources that I've found. A lot of other stuff is out on Facebook right now. There's a lot of people who are very, very interested in this topic and very active. And it's easy to find communities to be able to support you in that. And there's actually one locally here. So if anyone is interested in getting involved in Minnesota Peaceful Parenting Group, come find me afterwards and I can get you into that group too.
I'm really interested in this because you called yourself a dumb millennial. That's the first time I've ever heard a millennial call himself dumb.
It must be one of the smarter ones.
No, I would say as far as there's a lot of good ones. I think that one of the things that I don't like about some of the resources that are out there, particularly in the financial field, is that when you get into the business of selling books rather than providing financial advice, it's easy to write a book that tells people what they want to hear. And what do you care as long as you pay somebody pays $10.95 for this to tell you that your financial advisor is a jerk off, that's easy. That's an easy book to sell. But it's also an easy book to sell that has a lot of good information in it as well. I don't want to throw any of those authors under the bus, but there's this kind of wave of former life coaches and things that have now become financial advisors, without any licensing. But they're out there, and I think any of those. I mean, if it's somebody that if you're engaged in it and you like that person and their personality, I think it's great. I think that what you have to be careful, and I tell my clients this. I love to have those dialogues when they come in and they've just read a Dave Ramsey book, for instance, or something. That's a great one. I mean, that's fantastic. I love to have that conversation because there's a lot of stuff that Dave Ramsey says that I can't say. I mean, I can't say it. But I like to have those discussions about people about, hey, this is one perspective, and here's what I'd like to talk to you about, because it's kind of a broad brush stroke here that may or may not work for your particular situation. But if you come in educated, you're going to have a much better relationship with a good advisor and a good, just anybody, even if it's a lawyer, a friend, whatever that you're talking to.
For homeschooling, there's two major organizations in Minnesota. When you think of homeschoolers, you usually think Christians with their little caps on their heads and all prim and proper, but they were huge pioneers, and so there's a big population of them. So MSHE is the name of that one, Minnesota Association of Christian Home Educators. I believe their convention is next weekend. It's worth it to go, whether you're a Christian or not, because they offer so many resources. It's ridiculous, workshops and such. The other one is the Minnesota Homeschoolers Association, so MHA. I have not been to their convention. I believe theirs is later in the summer. Both have websites, so I would direct you there first to either one of those.
Well, then there's HSLDA, right? We know homeschool.
Yes, there is. That's a national. That's national. If you're afraid of legal entanglements, that HSLDA would be the one to check out their website.
Yeah. Just quickly, STEM, there's tons of stuff on it. You can Google and find all sorts of stuff, of course. And the big universities like MIT, of course, you can get every possible science, math, physics related course you want online. Again, it's not a problem. The only thing you need is a lab, and that's what we're going to try to solve. Is we're going to give you some resources so that you can take that knowledge that you learned from MIT as a 15-year-old or 14-year-old, whatever. I think you should start young. Start at 10. Start taking MIT courses at 10. It's a good idea. I'm not kidding either. So anyway, Project-based learning is another thing you should look at, because that's kind of what we do in this thing, is we just basically have projects. The kids either alone or figure out how to solve the projects. We're trying to get them to make a nuclear reactor and of course a spaceship and things like that. So those are the kind of things they do. And yeah, we'll have a website up. I got a guy working on a website right now, and we'll have a back end with, you know, resources and courses and crap like that. So keep an eye out for Narada Institute.
Excellent. Well, with that, we're out of time. But thank you to everyone on the panel, Nick, Michelle, Brandon. Appreciate your time, and I hope everyone enjoyed the topic.